My agenda here has nothing to do with being correct or providing advice, but rather to suss out potential ways of considering various topics and situations. Not here to make friends or inspire enemy combatants, though also not opposed to either. Correct me, criticize me, words still won't hurt me. That said, the zombie apocalypse is happening if you acknowledge how many people can rationalize their way out of a paper bag. Any cures provided happen naturally, and I'm not liable. Carry on, shall we? Howdy, humans. It may not be obvious what I did in what order here today, but I haven't moved, and the last thing I talked about was upsetting to me. And it makes sense that I do this video next, which is how to grow, it's important to grow a spine through intellect and knowledge. So a lot of us have or do feel a bit confused sometimes and just like, I think somebody just ripped me off or got me to do something I really wasn't, maybe even only in hindsight, interested in doing. There's a lot of coercion in many different areas of life at this point because we teach people how to manipulate other people to get what they want. That's the sciences themselves that have learned how certain techniques work and how you can get people to support a cause and whatnot aren't always used in a bad way. The intent can be in the right place, if you will, or something. Sure, but I've seen so many people not understand what happened to them when they're like, oh, I fell victim to an MLM or something. I don't know why I need to say this because it seems obvious, but I feel as though it does need to be said because it doesn't seem to be obvious. Like, bare bones, the reason to learn things is because knowledge is power. Schoolhouse Rock taught us that. I always love Schoolhouse Rock. I have the CD collection, actually, because maybe I'm a geek. There might not be a maybe about it. But anyway, that's not what I'm trying to talk about. Knowledge is power. Knowledge is what, as we've evolved as humans, we've gotten to do more with our lives by being more knowledgeable, being more informed. And it seems as though there's this like dive off the cliff of people just forgetting that they need to know stuff. I mean, is it forgetting or is it not realizing? I'm not 100%. It just seems, I think not realizing, because it seems as though there's a lot of, but it's manipulation too, because there's a lot of opportunities for people to learn or learn more effectively or to understand that are either stripped away from the situation or context, but also, which seems deliberate. It's almost like we are constantly perpetuating the idea that, education is important, blah, blah, blah. But actually understanding is a different thing altogether. People, it's almost as if we're only given half the information. I feel like I'm going in circles here. But, it's like a lot of messaging is you need an education. But I don't hear enough emphasis on you need to understand things. There's lots of people who've learned things, but it doesn't mean they understand jack. They might be able to comprehend some particular thing because they have the right vocabulary. But the entire obvious yet seemingly secret thing about learning is that helps you to, first of all, be more confident. But in having the confidence, you're able to be strong. That's why it's power. Because when you have the confidence that you know things, and you're confident that you can comprehend things, process information, digest that information, and react appropriately, that's where the power comes from. So, if you got duped, curiosity, I don't understand. It seems so lacking. But if you're duped by someone or some organization, go figure out what their techniques were that you got duped by, so that you can recognize them in the future. And when you see them starting to unfold in front of you, you can you can comprehend what's happening and disengage or defend yourself against it. Because there's right, so because this is what I see happens more often is that people feel as though their instincts are more accurate, which doesn't hold water, like literally, but because I feel like a lot of conservative stuff that I see happening is people just thinking, well, that seems right to me and I'm going to go with it. Like, that guy seems like he knows what he's doing. He's a good businessman. Meanwhile, he's had like half a dozen bankruptcies. Well, he's a businessman, and so he must be a good businessman because he still has money. No, he knows how to manipulate things. So I feel as though people get because a lot of the things that someone like that participates in, various news sources, what have you, convince people that they're just simple logic, the superficial logic of something is all they need to make an educated decision, and that's not remotely the case. We think all kinds of things that aren't true. I mean, your brain can trick you into thinking, what is it, like the two different lines or different sizes, depends on where, or the vase versus the lady's face picture. There's all kinds of ways that it's more than obvious that we can't just, I don't know, go by your gut and know that that was the right thing to do because that makes some sense. No, I'm constantly, especially because I grew up poor and a lot of poor people fall for this kind of stuff. And I went to school in a way that taught me what is happening here. And I don't know that I necessarily needed to go to a university to be shown how that happens. You can just, you can watch how these models, formatted ways of doing things, tricks people into believing the thing you want them to believe. It's more or less all the same format. Doesn't matter if it's sales, religion, politics, whatever. When you understand that, how all of those systems work and the intent behind them and how they're manipulating you into doing what they want you to do, which is anybody who has to manipulate you into doing something they want you to do, it's because you didn't want to do that on your own. This is why you need to understand that, how those systems work, so that you can grow a spine and say, I see through your bull crap and I'm going to defend myself. I'm not going to just lay down for you and allow whatever manipulation you're trying to perpetuate to happen to me. And if we did that more often, I mean, you can't choose necessarily who your candidates are for politics, but you can realize that you don't like your options because you see what they're doing. If there was a sea change in people understanding manipulation and being able to, because what I'm also trying to say is that you can't just logically also look at those techniques and methods and then just assume that because you know what they are, you know how to defend yourself. You have to be able to have a range of knowledge and information, because just because you understand the tactics doesn't mean you can properly work against them. So if someone says something, you're like, okay, I get these techniques, but then that person said something that still makes sense to me, because you don't know how to debunk what's being said to you, you could still be coerced. So, yeah, predators look for victims. So part of my point in saying that it gives you a spine is that people who are predatory and are looking to manipulate other people, they can see that you're weak. So if you learn a lot of things and you know how to go out into the world confidently and know that you can back yourself up in any situation, you're not going to look like a victim, so you won't be preyed upon. Right? Like, I used to walk the streets in the city at night in the dark. My friends always thought that was ridiculous, and I'm like, I don't walk like I'm prey. Like, I walk confidently. People who are they're looking for someone who's vulnerable. So if you're not obviously vulnerable, you don't carry yourself in a way that indicates vulnerability. Not to say this is like just easy and it just happens, which is my point, is it's something you have to work for. And when you work for it and you see the changes that happen and you see how much happier you are and you see that you've stopped another one in its tracks, you can feel good about that. And so when somebody walks up to you not knowing if you are or not and they start feeling you out, they will feel that you are not a sucker, right? They will have a sense of that. And it's unfortunate because, speaking to my own experience, it's like, well, then you seem like you're constantly defensive and then you seem a certain way and maybe you seem aggressive. Yeah, I'm tired of being aggressive because I have to constantly defend myself against this constant barrage of manipulators who are out for themselves. Yes, I don't like it either. Like, my tone sucks sometimes. Yeah, I would love to feel comfortable enough to be warm and friendly like I like to be. That's who I want to be. But instead, I have a spine like a steel girder. I think I'm saying that right. I just don't. I don't feel comfortable enough to not initiate much of my social interactions from that point of view, because it's so incessant, because I've been able to do this for myself, and then I see that it's everywhere, and so it is really difficult not to have the defenses up against this, because you never know when somebody's gonna try to. So if I can say nope, nice try, nope, and swat them down every time, it might be a lonely experience, but I can stand up straight. I can look myself in the eye. I can look other people in the eye and say, so what do you think you're trying to do? To me? Oh, you didn't like that I took that? One another round. It's when you feel as though you've been through yet another situation of how did I get myself in this situation, look for what caused it, then learn about how the cause is created and then learn how you need to strengthen your spine to react to these things. There is no measure of how rewarding it is to know that because I feel like it won't ever happen to me again. I doubt that that's actually true. But the fact that I feel fortified by my knowledge, my learning, my observation, my discernment, it's so much less likely that I do feel just comfortable walking around, however defensive I may feel I need to be in any given social situation with people I don't know, and obviously even people I do. Knowing it's so much less likely, I actually am more relaxed. More relaxed in not being anxious all the time that something, like, when is the shoe gonna drop? When is this, I feel like just weird, inexplicable bad things are happening with regularity. When you know that you can kind of weed all of that out to a pretty comprehensive ability, the anxiety goes down, but the wall stays up, right? Like, build your wall of knowledge to protect you instead of having fight or flight constantly doing the work because you can't work your way around it intellectually. I think it's important to reduce the need for emotions in these types of situations by just increasing your awareness and your knowledge. Fortitude through knowledge. Let your brain do that work. Let your emotions be yours and use them in the situations you want to use them in. Because that's the thing, my wall may be up, but I'm using my intellect to defend against it. I'm not emotional about it at all. When I see a predator coming up in one form or the other, I just go, I know what I'm dealing with, and I just deal with it. I don't get heated about it. I don't get mad at the person. It doesn't matter because I've detached my emotional defense against that, which is also what they can manipulate and shift around and do whatever with that can make the situation more harmful to you. So the more indifferent you are to just defending yourself appropriately and in a way that nobody can really hold against you, right? If someone might be able to paint you as, as emotional or something because they're going to mischaracterize your attitude because they didn't get what they want, so now they're being emotional. If you, if you can point out, no, I just had a solid logical argument against you. You're the one getting emotional. I find that's an easier way to get people on your side when you might be around people who would side with them when they make it emotional. Hope that makes sense. Because like with dating, somebody can be like, oh, she, more or less, these aren't the words they're going to use, but she didn't succumb to my coercion. What a bitch. And you can say, nope, I just really didn't like how you approached me. And that's not a perfect example, but I wouldn't get in an argument with that person. I would just say, I say a few things, I suss out a few things, usually because you don't want to piss these people off either, but you're going to anyway. It's like, oh, but you're talking to me. I'm interested in someone who has a solid knowledge base and has this, that, and the other qualities. And in talking to you, you don't have those qualities. So I gave you an opportunity, and you didn't show me that you have the qualities I find desirable. If that makes me a bitch, that's fine. And if you stay calm and cool and intellectual about what happened, they're the one who looks ridiculous. Right? And you've still got your spine, and they never had one in the first place in many cases. Try and make me look like I'm the ridiculous one. You're the one who's freaking out because one single person turned you down. Whatever context it actually is. Because that's often the type of thing I'm talking about, is somebody offers you something and you refuse because you understand that you don't want that thing. If you can keep it intellectual and unemotional, there's not a point where somebody can say, yeah, but you should like the person who doesn't have the qualities you like. No one can say that. It usually ends right there. But their being upset about it can happen somewhere else, because they're not going to win an intellectual argument about coercion, right? I think I could have probably said all of that better, and maybe I could say a bunch more, but I hopefully made some sense along the way and got to the point I'm trying to make. Point being, a lot of times when you're being coerced by somebody, they don't have feelings to be hurt anyway. So involving your feelings in that situation isn't doing anything but involving your feelings in that situation, because they don't have any about that. They have an attachment to an outcome, not any sincere sentiment of anything. So, yeah, I guess I'll end it there. Maybe I made some sense in what I was saying, and you can apply at least a piece or two out of some of what I said in a way that maybe you hadn't quite thought of before. And if not, I did what I could. So have a wonderful day. Carry on and be wise. Toodles.